Herobrine.
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 Herobrine, Minecraft's biggest mystery for the past 14 years. From becoming the figure that haunted every kid's Minecraft world, everyone on the internet knows that there is only one Herobrine. But what if there was a second Herobrine? About a month ago, I came across this Reddit post. A user by the name of ProudJaguar696 made a channel to upload videos they recorded back in 2017. They wanted to showcase their journey on figuring out how to beat the game. But when looking into the channel, I found something much different. The video starts off with our protagonist in the mines. We can see the date of the recording, which possibly means they're playing on 1.12. As the player starts heading down the mines, we already notice they keep looking back, as if they think something is following them. Then they start typing.
Hey guys, it's Simon. Welcome back to Beating the Dragon.
We now have a name for our protagonist, Simon. We also notice Simon's background, which seems to be a screenshot of what looks to be Simon and another player called XXAngeloXX322. Remember that name. Simon begins strip mining for a few minutes, but while mining, Simon keeps coming across air pockets, something that doesn't naturally happen in world generation. But as the video continues, it cuts to a new clip where Simon wants to show us a cool mining technique he found. But while mining, Simon notices something off. Simon notices a large dugout area. Inside, we don't see anything except this weird object in the distance. And by hiring the exposure, we can make out what seems to be black pillars. For what, we don't know. But we can also see this black outline, which we can't tell nor make out what it could be. But before trying to find answers, we hear blocks breaking. Immediately, the clip cuts to Simon running back to the surface, but when Simon escapes, he's met with a strange occurrence. Simon panics, he heads to his house, and the video ends. Unfortunately, we're left with a lot of questions, like what are with the air pockets? What are these black pillars? What is this black outline? Who is mining the blocks? What happened to all the leaves? Who is messing with Simon? Wait, what happened to all the leaves? We've actually seen these tree trunks before. Herobrine is known for messing with people's worlds, and one of the many ways he does this is by removing the leaves of people's trees. Could this be Herobrine? We're not too sure, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to move on to the second video, fishing.mp4. Our next video takes place 6 days after the last one. We start with Simon writing us an odd message.
I don't want to look under my bed anymore.
If we want to understand what this means, we'll have to revisit it later on. Simon then exits his house and goes to the mine, but doesn't go any further and instead gazes at the staircase leading into the fog, almost as if he's recalling certain memories. He then covers up the hole and heads to his pond. There, he attempts on getting enchantment books from fishing, but moments after, Simon sees a zombie pigman. He kills it confusingly, trying to figure out where it came from, and rightfully so. We can see the broken nether portal, and considering pigmans don't spawn in the overworld, it'd be impossible for them to spawn unless a player had spawned them. But Simon brushes it off and heads back to his house. And at 4 minutes and 53 seconds, we get this. The rod appears to be floating. Simon, obviously freaked out, heads to his house, but still keeping the rod attached. And then it slowly starts going down. Simon makes an iron sword and cowardly heads outside, but not before writing.
I think this might be cause of the statue.
He heads outside to see his pond turned into a giant crater. Trying to understand the scenario, Simon gets hit by a zombie, falls, and the video ends. We're left with a lot of questions, so I'll go through everything in order. Starting off with Simon's message. He states he doesn't want to look under his bed anymore. We see right before the video ends, under his bed is cobblestone blocks, but we can see the entire floor is made up of grass. Why go out of your way to place 2 cobblestone blocks under your bed? Because there was never grass blocks under his bed. I'll play a clip from my video a few minutes ago. Tell me what you see. Simon panics, he heads to his house, and the video ends. He heads to his house, he heads to his... Who is under Simon's bed? One thing's for sure, we can see white eyes. The eyes of Herobrine. But it doesn't look like Herobrine. But before I go on to that, we now know there was someone spying on Simon. And Simon probably realized this after looking back at the footage, so he covered up his bed to make sure he wouldn't be watched. Okay, but what about the zombie pigman? What happened there? Well, knowing that whoever this was under Simon's bed is probably the same person messing with him, so he also broke Simon's portal and summoned the pigman to freak Simon out, which further proves what happened with the fishing rod situation. We can also see the way the fishing rod moves is the exact same way it would move when attaching to a player. This means that this thing is invisible and the person we see taunting Simon. We also notice right before the video ends, when Simon is falling, we get a glimpse of a sign. I tried brightening the image using AI quality enhancer, asked many others to make out what the words could be, but unfortunately, we couldn't figure out what it says. But one thing's for sure, whatever is written was most likely by the person attacking Simon. Okay, but why? Why do all of this? Why would this thing go out of its way to attack a little kid just trying to play Minecraft? Is it malicious or is there a deeper meaning? If we want to find the answer, we can't just move on to the next video because this channel only has 2 videos. But if this is where the story ends, I wouldn't be making this video. When I went back to the Reddit post, I noticed something odd. I found there about me that said playlist ? List equals. This set of words are actually used in a link for playlists. This is not a coincidence. They want to be found but hidden at the same time. And thanks to a friend, they messaged me an important detail and why 512 captions are disabled, but in fishing.mp4 they're enabled. And when I turn on the captions, there was nothing except at 6 minutes and 5 seconds. We get a set of words and numbers, and if we combine those terms, we get a link that sends us to an unlisted playlist named Simon. The story of Simon is just getting started. Our first video on the playlist is named Birthday. Compared to the other 2 videos, this one is very odd. For one, we can see that there's no Bandicam watermark, meaning we aren't seeing Simon's recording and instead someone else's. They place an obsidian block and the video cuts to Simon's POV. Simon is giving an introduction to himself and explaining his process in trying to beat the game. The way he welcomes the viewers and introduces the video could imply we're seeing the very first Simon upload. He proceeds to test out glitches that he found online, but as he moves on to the next exploit, he says,
"This is one we found on YouTube that will give us free diamonds."
And you'd expect a duplication glitch when he says free diamonds, but instead he starts building something structure-like. As he begins placing the last block, just like the beginning of the video, it cuts. Let's recap at the intro. We can tell from the sound of silverfish and stone bricks that our player is in the stronghold, and we can match the structure we see here is the exact one Simon builds at the end of the video. Right before Simon builds, his message seems a bit odd. This so-called free diamond exploit is something that I've never seen even after researching about it, and I think it has something to do with the fact that in his video, the first glitch he tests out, he says, "I found this one on YouTube." And it's a legit dupe glitch people used to do in 1.12. But then the moment Simon tries out a glitch we've never seen before, he says, "This is one we found on YouTube." Who is this person, and could they be the same person that we saw building the same structure in the beginning of the video? I believe whoever this person is might have sent Simon a fake exploit video so they could build this structure. If that's the case, what could this structure be? One thing that we noticed is that it resembles the structures people used to build to summon Herobrine. Could this structure relate to the alternate Herobrine we saw in the videos? I think this next video could solve our questions. Our next video opens with Simon in a cave. As he's strip mining, we can hear the sound of another player breaking blocks. We are then introduced to a player named Angelo, the person we saw in Simon's wallpaper. We can see they both seem to be racing for diamonds, and after complaining about how long it's been, Simon stumbles upon diamonds, but Angelo ends up collecting all of them, and Simon gets upset.
"Dude, those were in my line. WTF.
You gotta get better, lol. I don't make the rules."
He covers up the wall tunnel and continues mining. He then finds a mine shaft, though unaware of what it is. And when Angelo informs Simon that it has good stuff, Simon starts booking it and falls into a hole, with Angelo blocking his exit. Simon walks around, gets scared by a cave noise, and the video cuts right as Angelo gets killed by a cave spider. Compared to the other videos, there isn't anything weird going on, but we do meet Angelo. From this video alone, we don't really know too much about Angelo. This conversation they had before the recording, we could tell they're friends and could possibly go to the same school.
Still have detention?
Yeah, it's like one more day.
Okay.
Considering no one else is ever introduced later in the videos, it's safe to assume in the episode Birthday, when I was asking who Simon was referring to in his message, it was probably about Angelo. So does that mean Angelo was responsible for making Simon build that odd structure? Yes, but seeing how Angelo treats Simon, Angelo probably did it to mess with Simon, but Angelo has no idea what's heading his way. Immediately, this video opens in a familiar spot. That's because this is Simon's house before it was fully built. As we watch Simon build his house, everything seems fine. Simon's gathering materials and heading into the mines as he's struggling to kill the mobs. But when the video cuts, things get weird. Simon is heading into the nether for the first time to collect glowstone for his base. As he heads back to set it next to his bed, Simon writes a message, and when he goes into F5, all of a sudden the glowstone is gone. Simon looks around confused, and as he types question marks in the chat, the video cuts. Wait, did Angelo just type in chat? That doesn't make sense. We can see at the beginning of the video Simon is in single player. How is that possible? In fact, what happened to the glowstone? Simon just went in F5 and it was just gone. We should have heard the sound of glowstone being broken. Well, it's obvious the person responsible is this alternate Herobrine. With Angelo writing,
Where am I?
it's obvious this thing is keeping Angelo captive somewhere. And the reason I know this might surprise you. As of now, we've watched 5 videos on the Simon channel in this order, but if we rearrange them in their chronological order, things start making more sense. The first actual video is where we see Simon building this odd structure. Remember when I mentioned that it resembled Herobrine's structure earlier in the video? I also stated that it resembled a structure people used to build to summon Herobrine. This would explain why every odd occurrence takes place after Simon had built the structure, because in this video, he used the structure to summon this alternate Herobrine, which is why it spent all this time haunting Simon, but now it's gotten his friend Angelo, and Simon has to save his friend. Our video starts off with Simon in distress. As he types in chat,
Hi YouTube, can people get into your single player game?
Simon is aware something's wrong. Angelo's message still in chat tells us that Simon never left the game and has been trying to figure out what happened. Notice how each message Simon types, instead of entering it in chat like he normally does, he instead deletes the message because he knows someone else is in the game with him. He musters up the courage and writes back to who he thinks is Angelo. How are you here, Angelo? Simon gets himself a bow and draws it, getting ready to defend himself while staying on high alert. He enters the nether and travels to a nearby portal, and when he goes through, we see Simon's old house, the one we saw in the episode Birthday, meaning we know this all takes place in the same world. Simon looks through a chest, but then notices something under his bed. When he breaks it, a giant hole was dug all the way to the bottom of the world. Then Simon snaps. He grabs his flint and steel and frantically burns his house. His reaction seems odd. We've seen him get scared at these occurrences before, but we've never seen him destroy his belongings like this. I believe that the holes Simon sees under his bed reminded him of what he saw when he went to look under the bed that was used to spy on him. They both were probably dug out holes, and Simon is now realizing that this wasn't the first time he was being watched. After Simon burns his old house, he runs back through the portal and heads back to his base. There, he proceeds to draw his bow again, but as he's doing so, a message pops up in chat saying, "There's something here," and moments after, he then sends another message saying, "Dark," and that's where the video ends. There's something here, dark. Seems like Angelo is trying to tell Simon where he's at, but Angelo doesn't seem to know himself. Also, something I never mentioned in the last video where I said Simon was mining and fighting mobs, we could actually see in the footage the air pockets, something I pointed out in the beginning of the video. It seems that just like Herobrine with his 2x2 tunnels, tree trunks, and redstone torches, there are signs that show Herobrine is in our world, the same way we constantly see air pockets and dugout holes under beds in Simon's world could also be signs this alternate Herobrine uses to show he's in the world. But going back to the message, where could Angelo be? Seems like Dart could refer to something, like somewhere far underground, almost like the bottom of a pit. The video opens with a death screen. Right before Simon respawns, we could see a diamond pickaxe and a stack of salmon dropped from his inventory, which happens to be the same item Simon had in his fishing video. From his death message saying fell from a high place, we can tell this video takes place moments after the fishing video ends, with Simon falling into a pit. But when he respawns, his items and XP are gone. It could have just despawned, but what are the chances the moment Simon clicks respawn, his items are just gone? It seems like someone stole them. Nonetheless, Simon finds himself at the bottom of the world. Once again, we see this deep but short mined out area, similar to the one we saw in the beginning of the video, except this time there's cobblestone pillars placed all around the area. What makes this more confusing is that Simon finds a trail of cobblestone blocks, and as he collects all of them, he traces his steps back, but can't seem to find the hole he fell into despite hearing the sounds of rain coming from above, meaning this alternate Herobrine covered up the hole. As Simon wanders around, he sees a player in the corner of his eye. When he goes to check it out, the player is gone, but his attention quickly switches to a sign that he notices. When he goes to read it, it says, Simon says built a base, built it bigger. Odd, but Simon breaks the sign and continues walking. He eventually comes to a dead end and uses the wall to continue walking. But then Simon notices another sign, this time being creepier than the previous. Simon says, breaking sign? It seems that this alternate Herobrine is watching Simon, but when Simon decides to break the sign, it becomes obvious when he turns around and sees another sign. Simon says, break everything. Even if these are all messages, we can tell this one has a very serious tone. This time, Simon doesn't break the sign and just walks away. But once again, while Simon is walking, he stops and sees a figure's arm and leg sticking out. But when it hides itself, Simon checks it out, and once again, the figure is gone. Simon starts sprinting, and as things couldn't get any weirder, we hear this. Simon boxes himself, but then a sign is placed right in front of him saying, Simon says, my base is my bedroom. As he's running away, Angelo writes a message in chat. I think I see your name. As Angelo is walking backwards, he accidentally finds himself in a mineshaft. He blocks up the entrance and the video ends. Throughout the video, there's probably one question we all have. What do the signs mean? Simon says built a base, built it bigger? The term built a base could refer to Simon's old house, and then right after saying built it bigger is implying Simon's new house is bigger than his old one. Then why start the message off with Simon says? Could this refer to the children's game known as Simon Says? Well, then it would open up new questions. What are the chances they're not referring to the game and instead are just referring to Simon himself? Are they implying this is something Simon said, which could explain the Simon Says? Unfortunately, there's not enough evidence for a clear answer. But then we can tell from the message moments after saying Simon says breaking sign, Simon is being watched, and the figure continues to mess with Simon throughout the video, placing more signs, playing cave sounds, and running around invisible. But the two times we see footage of another player in this video could be the alternate Herobrine, but they are barely visible on screen, not allowing us to have a clear look. But despite that, Angelo's message tells us that Simon is getting closer, and Angelo could be wherever this mineshaft takes him. But something interesting about this mineshaft is that I noticed it looked very familiar, and that's when I pieced together that this was the mineshaft from the episode that we see Angelo and Simon together. But we have to move on to the next episode, Trick. The video opens with Simon still stuck in the mine shaft. He grabs wood planks and crafts himself a pickaxe to mine his way out. As he's digging to the surface, Simon hears a weird sound and turns around to see a cobblestone block that he did not place. He brushes it off and continues mining. When he makes his way to the top, he finds himself in a forest with no leaves. Once again, unbothered, and he finds his way back to his base. But when he returns, something's off about his house. From the outside, it appears to be a lot bigger, and when he tries to go inside, there are multiple layers of doors that Simon has to go through. But for the first time, we notice Simon puts text on screen, which says,
I want to leave the world.
and another one saying,
But the dragon,
and a final one.
I called it beating the dragon.
Moments after, we get this clip. Although this video was short, we get important information on Simon's motives. Realistically, why would you put yourself through all of this? Wouldn't it be easier to leave and make a new world? Well, Simon's messages implies that he wants to leave the world, but the dragon. Simon doesn't want to leave his world because he wants to beat the dragon. And maybe he doesn't want to restart his world because he's never gotten this far. In his first video, he was mentioning to us how he's never beaten the game before. So if he's gotten this far, he isn't going to let some entity stop his progress. But we need to move on to the next video, which takes place on the 7th of October. There seems to be a conversation going on between Simon and Angelo. We even see Angelo 6 seconds into the video, but unfortunately, this isn't the same Angelo that was captured by the entity. This video seems to take place on the 10th of October, recorded before Simon's first ever video, meaning this footage must be a recap of the past. Simon throws an Eye of Ender, so we know they're planning on heading to the stronghold. They eventually find the stronghold and start digging down. When they arrive, they start looking for the end room, but Angelo's behavior is very odd. He keeps trying to get away from Simon and hiding from him. Eventually, Simon loses him and is forced to look for the end room himself. Eventually, the video cuts and Simon ends up finding the end room, but with Angelo standing right by the entrance. Angelo places down a sign and it says,
Happy birthday, dummy.
Then Angelo places a diamond block. Simon's very happy, and as he mines the diamond block, the video ends. This video happens to be the strangest out of any other video we've watched, we just don't realize. For one, Simon stated he's never beaten the dragon before, but in this video, Angelo and Simon are in the process of almost beating the dragon. Was Simon lying, or is there more to the picture? Well, we can tell Simon is the only one with Eyes of Enders because he seems to be the only one throwing them, but he only has 2, which isn't enough to fill in an ender portal. After the recording ended, they probably realized they couldn't go into the end and just gave up. And Angelo celebrating Simon's birthday could relate to his birthday video, but I'll get back to that later. Also, something I want to point out is this video's abrupt ending. When Simon mines the block, it cuts, but not only that, if you pay close attention, you can see the video quality starts breaking before it ends. In fact, this happens 5 times throughout the whole series. 2 times in Y512, 2 times in birthday, and 1 time in the most recent video. There is definitely a deeper meaning to this. We've seen cuts happen without the screen breaking down, but these abnormal cuts only happen in significant moments of the story. In Y512, the screen cuts as soon as the entity starts breaking blocks. In birthday, the 2 times the cut happens are both when the structure is fully built. Does this evidence actually prove anything? Unfortunately, no, but with 2 episodes left, we are getting closer to the answer. The next video is titled question marks. It appears to be up to date with the rest of the playlist. Simon is heading to the stronghold, this time alone. We eventually see Simon stumble upon the same area we saw last episode, although for some reason Simon is searching for the stronghold as if he doesn't remember going with Angelo. Simon gets the achievement for finding the stronghold a second time, meaning he must be playing in a different world. This time he's ready as he finds the end room and lights up the portal. When he enters into the end, it seems to be a normal end fight and Simon is finally ready to end the series. But then at 4 minutes and 15 seconds, we get this. The dragon just disappears. Simon confusingly walks around, doesn't know what to make of the situation, so he quickly ends the video. In 0-00, the video continues where we left off. Simon is trying to understand what's happening, but all of a sudden, the bedrock platform disappears. A few seconds later, air pockets can be seen all throughout the island. Then, a few more seconds later, the air pockets get bigger, and in a matter of moments, the island is slowly breaking down. Simon climbs up a pillar, and in the span of 30 seconds, he sees the entire end island gone. Simon climbs to the top of the pillar, and after a while of silence, he realizes a pillar disappears, and then another one, and eventually all that's left is Simon in the middle of the void. Then we see Angelo join the game.
Angelo, where have you been? Do you see this?
As Simon is trying to understand the situation, this happens. Simon then cuts to him dragging a file to the recycle bin, and that's where the video cuts off. What did he drag into the recycle bin? It was most likely his world file. This theory will make sense in a bit, meaning the entity had succeeded in scaring Simon off and finally got what he wanted. We also see Angelo for the first time in a while. Simon's message saying, "Where have you been?" implies that Simon hasn't seen Angelo since he was taken, but Angelo doesn't say anything. In fact, it was quite creepy how Angelo just said nothing to Simon. Where did Angelo go? Why is he acting different? If we want to know, we have to finish the final episode. The video cuts to Simon joining a server with Angelo.
Haha, you got out too?
This clip seems to take place a while after everything that had went down. What they're talking about is unknown at the moment.
Yeah, it's noisy.
I don't even know them.
But then Angelo says,
Yo, I saw the videos. Sorry I didn't believe you.
the video that Angelo could be referring to are the videos of Simon encountering the entity. Maybe Angelo never believed him until Simon showed him proof. Simon says nothing bad's happened after that moment, and Angelo insists on celebrating. They grab themselves fireworks, and Simon says Happy New Year's as he lights off the fireworks, which means this video takes place on New Year's. But then the conversation gets interesting.
That lamp you gave me just turned off. The one by my bed.
What lamp?
The video then cuts to Simon on his desktop again with his recycle bin open, hovering over a file that says Beating the Ender Dragon, the same name we see when Simon shows his world menu. He clicks restore, and that's where the video ends. In the beginning of the video, the conversation Angelo and Simon were talking about was most likely a New Year's party. Simon also tells Angelo that the lamp Angelo gave him just turned off, but Angelo says he never got him a lamp. He even mentions that this lamp happens to sit by his bed, the same lamp that Simon put next to his bed, which means Simon was building his house based off his room. But then a sign is placed right in front of him saying, Simon says, "My base is my bedroom." How could the entity have known that? In fact, why does Simon decide to restore the world that he was tormented in? Isn't it funny how Angelo and Simon both entered the stronghold, but for some reason Simon's the only one who gets the achievement for finding it for the first time? Oh, but Render, Angelo planned this to surprise Simon for his birthday. Okay, but strongholds don't have spruce planks in the corner of their room. Why is it there? In fact, why does this match with the spruce plank that we see in the episode Birthday, where underneath was a structure that's used to summon the alternate Herobrine is being built? Why does Angelo need that? Isn't it funny how Angelo was the same person who made Simon build a structure and caused all of this in the first place? Also, why do you need footage of what happened to Simon to believe that he was being haunted? You got kidnapped by this entity. That should be more than enough evidence. Isn't it also interesting how this entity has the ability to go into single player games and turn into an invisible player? What are the chances he can't just type in chat and use a different name? What are the chances that the Angelo we've seen in every video never existed? In fact, the only time we have actually ever seen Angelo was in Simon's wallpaper, where XXAngelo XX322 was his real name. In the other videos, we've seen names like XXAngelo XX233 and XXAngelo233. Why are there different names? What are the chances that Simon never got his friend back? Which is why he's restoring the world to go back and save him. What are the chances that Angelo never came back and this alternate Herobrine never left?